Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. In the zone, Rich Sutter, Pete Coles, dynamic duo. The basketball world is our world, and it is absolutely rocking and rolling right now, Pete. NBA is on fire. We have cup news, big cup news. We'll talk about that a little bit. We also going to talk about Charlie Baker. When we say it, boy, does it seem to happen right after that.
Yeah. Charlie
Baker, president of the NCAA, in front of Congress the other day, absolutely lit up in flames. Lit up in flames. We'll talk about that as well. But we're going to jump off with our number one segment, Pete's Corner. Pete postulates, formulates, and comes up with some questions for me, and we do the best we can and knock them out of the park. Pete, shot number one.
Charlotte Hornets. Are they the Grinch of Christmas? Do you know the story?
No. Fill me in.
During a halftime skit, they presented a season ticket holder, a child, with a PS5. And when they ushered him off the court, they took the PS5 away and gave him a jersey. Now, apparently they had told the adult this beforehand, but everybody in the crowd, including like the cheerleaders, dancers, staff, everybody thought this kid was getting a PS5. And they took it away from him.
And they had it at the game?
They handed it to him. And then when they got off court in the tunnel, they took it away from him and gave him a jersey. And they thought that would be okay.
To a child?
Yes. They thought that would be okay.
They didn't give him the machine and the jersey?
No.
Okay.
Apparently they thought this would be some kind of nice promotional thing, maybe for a PS5. I have no idea. But they got caught on it, and the fan reaction was outstanding because the fan reaction was like, "You didn't what? Huh? What?"
Wow.
When a team does promotions like that, should they just, they did it on TV. It's like, why would you do that? It's not like you don't have the money to give away a PS5.
All right. This is going to be a really quick question.
Yeah.
And we're going to unwrap this really quick, okay? If this is the way that this went down, it's an absolute blight, all right? Just remember just recently the heartache that ran through North Carolina.
Yep.
Now you got a young man lined up for Christmas, and this is how we solve it, Pete. I'm calling on every single one of those millionaires in the Charlotte Hornet locker room to make this right. Get it done. Get it right. Take care of this kid. Okay? Your team is an embarrassment to the NBA, both in the standings and now it appears on their community relations as well. Okay? I'm glad they got lit up over it. If that's the way it went down, that's atrocious. It's atrocious. Another reason, Pete, another in the myriad of reasons people do not like the NBA right now.
So here's the postscript. Everybody agreed with you. I just wanted to see your reaction to it. This is from the Hornets. They said, during Monday's game, there's an on-court skit that missed the mark. The skit included bad decision-making and poor communication. Simply put, we turned the ball over and we apologized. We've reached out to the family and committed not only to making it right, but exceeding expectations. We'll be providing the fan with a PS5 that he should have taken home last night, along with a VIP experience to a future game. Our goal is and will remain to elevate the guest experience for every person that enters the Spectrum Center and show our fans how much we appreciate their relentless support. That's the reaction from the team.
So they're trying to
everybody reacted just like you did.
That's milk in the bottle. That's milk going back in the bottle on the Hornets area. But here's something I would ask their front office, how did you arrive at such a decision? Like, you have all these people that are corporately paid, all these very high-priced people that are around you. You have general counsel. You have all of these different people that are around you that get paid a ton of money. How did that get by? How did somebody not sit there and say, are you kidding me? We're going to pull the rug out on this kid in the tunnel?
Yep.
Oh, my God. As if the NBA didn't have enough problems, man. All right, Pete, shot number 2. Let's do it.
Shot number 2. Is Congress ready to take out the governor, Charlie Baker?
Well,
or is he just the politician that nobody really wanted for Christmas?
I think I like the way you laid that out better in the second stanza there. But I was glad, honestly glad, because I got to watch some of that, and they absolutely lit him on fire. And it's one of those rare moments when a former politician, a guy who used to be able to take cover and run and not answer tough questions and not do the difficult interviews, used to be able to run and hide behind every decision that they made. Okay? You couldn't run and hide on this one. You were in front of Congress, and absolutely, can of gasoline, Bic lighter, lit on fire. Last week we called him Horatio for the ratio that he got when he talked about expanding the NCAA tournament. But then to go in, and we're going to talk about, I guess we could cover it right now in the segment, but to go in, have no answer for the locker room question, except to say that the young ladies had the availability to find another space. The NCAA,
You just said women's sports back 20 years.
They should have grabbed him on the spot. You know how in old vaudeville they used to have the hook? Well, the NCAA needed the hook for Charlie Baker yesterday, boy. They needed it bad. The second thing that came up was the issue of Title IX. And he gets into it with Josh Hawley, who's a congressman. And Hawley says, do you not believe that you have any, Title IX responsibilities? And Baker's answer was, we don't.
What?
We don't, because we don't take money from the government. The NCAA does not take money from the government. Former Governor Baker, president of the NCAA, let me tell you who does take money from the government. Every single one of your constituents that you now operate over. Every single one. And let me tell you something else. Just because you don't take money from the federal government, and I'm sure you're an attorney, you have a lot of attorneys around you, that doesn't make you exempt from federal law, my friend.
If you're all
federal law is federal law. And what's happened here with federal law has been a complete abrogation of what should have happened, and it's going to go back. And what the third thing that was so damaging for him was when Hawley called him on and said, you had no court mandate to do this. There was absolutely no court mandate that we can see that compels you to do this. And then Baker turned into a pile of pancakes and just started getting all syrupy about this and that, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful. If they don't pull him, they're going to have bigger problems than this, because he's way out of his depth on this. Way out of his depth on this. Pete, that's a good one.
All right, and the third question is a holiday-related question. I sent a meme to a friend of mine who's the vice president at Babe Ruth International, showing somebody that got their office decorated while he was on a trip, a member. And that vice president made a comment saying that he didn't think his staff had their energy to pull off such an event. I have proof to say otherwise.
Wow.
What do you think about that prank coming into that for your office in the morning?
That looks like vibration. That looks like more than energy to me, Pete. It looks like he totally misread his crew there. Totally not. That might be the nicest decorations I've ever seen. That is really, really something cool. But what happens is when you challenge people, a lot of times they're going to meet you. They're going to meet you on the day. All right, Pete, 3 great ones. Awesome. Pete's Corner's become a big, big part of our show.
We had to keep it light.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. Great questions. Really, really good insights. All right, let's slip right into the Power 15 in the NBA if we can. We've got our graphics rolling. We are rolling, rocking and rolling. My voice feels so much better after having a couple of days off of chasing those people around with stripes on their shirts. So we've got the Cleveland Cavaliers, Pete, the biggest surprise of the NBA, 23-4. The Eastern Conference, as we've alluded to before, is binary. You have a binary equation. Boston Celtics are going to chase the Cavaliers all the way home. I get it. It's only the first snippet. But, boy, there's just so much going on here to talk about that this Power 15 is almost like diminished by all the other crazy stuff the NBA is doing around the game. Wait till I tell you what they're doing with the All-Star game, folks. Wait till I tell you what they're doing with the All-Star game. Pete, you're just gonna wanna go crazy. You're gonna pull your hair out today, Pete. You're going home bald today. OKC Thunder, 20-5. What a team. They've really, really maxed out without Holmgren, and he's been hurt, and he's been out for a significant amount of time now. Really, really good job. They've got one of the best, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, on their team, but they've also got some other good pieces. And they also have Coach Dagnall, who's a Massachusetts product as well. Memphis Grizzlies, another surprise. I thought they'd be good. I thought them and the Rockets would really make a rise this year, but they're moving at a pace that I wasn't even sure that they could move at. The Grizzlies are back with John Morant. Zach Edey had a good game the other night. They're starting to put pieces together on that team. I think that team can be a serious playoff team this year. They're 18-9, and I'd like to see John Morant get into a serious playoff match and really test his skills. I know that he had some off-court stuff last year, but he's fun to watch. He's really fun to watch, and I really, really would like to see him in that format. The Rockets, 17-9, and this is another surprise NBA team. The baseline question that we have right now for everybody is, can they sustain? Will they be able to stay there? I think last year we saw this with the Kings a little bit. You know, they rose a little bit. We saw the Timberwolves way up there where they're not in the mix right now at the top. So we'll see. We'll see. It's a long, long 82-game season. Dallas Mavericks, Luka and Kyrie carrying it. They had a big game against the Warriors the other day where they lit up the NBA record for most threes, but we also are going to follow that up with the NBA record for ineptitude coming right behind it. We'll cover that later in the show. We got the New York Knicks at 16-10. Solid season for them. They're doing good. They're really the third base team right now in the East Coast. They've moved up. They've solidified. They seem to have better chemistry right now after a trade that was a little bit tumultuous, a little bit more, I think, than people think. Orlando Magic, 17-11 in the 8th spot. Surprise team, another baseline, another surprise team. And they're doing this right now without Franz Wagner, and they had Banchero out for a really long period of time. So for them to sustain at 17-11, really, really good stuff. You got the Nuggets. They're a little bit of an enigma this year. You know, they had been at championship level. Last year they ran in the, 1, 2, 3 spot with the Western Conference. Right now the Western Conference is stronger, younger, and the Denver Nuggets, even though the Joker's putting up significant MVP numbers, right now they're struggling as a team. Milwaukee Bucks, the winner of the Cup. They were the most beneficiary team of the Cup because before the Cup, they were drinking out of the toilet. And so right now they've got this cup that nobody cares about. It's a Pyrrhic victory in the middle of the season, but they're riding it. They're 14-11. It did give them a little bit of a win streak and get them moving a little bit. Minnesota Timberwolves, 14-11. This is a team I would say is going to rise a little bit. This is a team that's going to bounce back a little bit, but they got into that stuff with some of those trades and some of that stuff, and I just think it impacted them a little bit greater than it impacted the Knicks. Phoenix Suns, 14-11. If they have Durant, they're good. If they don't have Durant, they're not any good. It's really a split equation over there. Golden State Warriors, 14-11. They were right at the top in the beginning of the season. Right now, they're struggling. Clippers, doing pretty good. They got Harden, but they're a little closer to 15-12. I think you're a 500 team, with Harden out there doing his thing. You can't get Kawhi Leonard to play. You can't get him back. You lost Paul George. You lost significant pieces of that team. I think it's tough, but right now 15-12 for them is pretty good. We got the Miami Heat for the first time as well, Pete. Miami Heat are in for the first time as well, 13-11, and they've gotten a little bit of a hot streak. Some of it has been surrounded by the significant trade talk around Jimmy Butler right now, and he has absolutely matched that trade talk. I don't know whether he's trying to increase his trade value or they are really, really just trying to get him to stay and get him to fit and try and reestablish some of that chemistry they had when they went to the finals. But I think right now, they're struggling as a franchise. If they trade him, I hope they got a plan to get some significant stuff back because he's their stud. All right, let's slip into the not hot segment, Pete. It's terrible out there in loser land. We got a lot of NBA franchises that are absolutely in the life alert category. They've fallen. They can't get up, and they make draft picks go to these places to live in this perpetuity. I guess one of the questions I would ask all my zoners out there, all the people that watch this show regularly, does the NBA have too many teams right now? there are too many teams in the NBA because all of the talent just isn't there. It's dispersed out through all these teams, and what you're doing is you're putting the best talent. Scoot Henderson goes to the Blazers. He's struggling mightily. You got a lot of people there, that are looking and doing different stuff, and you just got a whole bunch of stuff going on out there where the best players, because of the draft situation, are winding up. You have Victor Wembanyama playing for the Spurs team, and that's a complete rebuild. He's the best young franchise player in the game right now, and he's in a rebuild. And so you're going to have this consistently go unless the NBA jumps in, and I could see them do this soon, is that they start to eliminate the draft, start to eliminate the lottery, and open it up to every single team so that some of these young players might have a better chance at getting off. You got Amen Thompson, Osar Thompson. They're struggling. One is with the Rockets, so they're doing a little bit better, but the other one's with the Pistons, and frankly, they're not doing well. The Jazz have lost 3 in a row. They're 5-20 right now. Terrible. The Pelicans are DFL in the Western Conference, lost 4 in a row. They're 1-9 in their last 10. The Raptors have lost 5 in a row. They're 3-7. Just bad teams. They're not very good. And the DFL on the Eastern Conference are the Wizards, 3-21, and they've lost, 1 of 9. They've lost 3 in a row, and they're 1 of 9. Just not a whole lot going on out there. And the Hornets, they've lost 2 in a row. Pete's aforementioned Hornets, 1-9 in their last 10 games. There has been talk that they might possibly trade Zion Williamson. There has been talk that they might trade Ingram as well, 2 of their Duke stars, okay? This is, the Eastern bottom 3. You have 3-21, 7-20, and 7-19 for a combined 17 of 60. The Wizards, the Raptors, and the Hornets, not good. No bueno. You got the Pelicans, the Jazz, and the Blazers over there at 5-22 for the Pelicans, 5-20 for the Jazz, 8-18 for the Blazers. That's an improvement for them, but they're 18-16 in the West bottom 3, 18-60. So you have 17-60 and 18-60, as we said before. No bueno. Okay, Pete, here's our segment. Under desperate people do desperate things. The NBA Cup was thankfully ended last night with the Milwaukee Bucks winning. Last year it was the Lakers. This year it was the Bucks. The Thunder and the Bucks came down to the final game. They beat the Thunder in a good game. They're going now. This is what they're going to do to the All-Star game now, Pete. This is when I say desperate people do desperate things, okay? They have a 4-team, 3-game, one-night tournament. The winning team in each one of those games is the first team to reach or eclipse 40 points. It's like the old RBA that I played back in the Bronx in the summer. First one to 40. And
can I give my response to that?
Eliminated and move on. There's going to be 4 teams.
Here's my response.
Oh, my God. Who the hell cares?
And who thought it up? That's what I want to know. Let's get to the root of this so these people can't keep doing this. Who's in the front office of the Hornets that took that box back from those kids? Tell me he's on the unemployment line. I know it's Christmas, but wait till after the holidays, but tell me that person's gone. All right? Just tell me something happens to these people. But you also have, as one of the 4th teams in the All-Star game, they're going to have 4 teams. One is coach, general manager is Shaq. The other, this is like, come on, tell me you're an ESPN complete conglomerate operation. Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley, those guys are going to be the general manager of these teams.
Oh, Lord.
And they also have a 4th team who are known as the Castrol Rising Stars. I don't know if that's oil.
Sponsored by Castrol?
I don't know if that's a NASCAR team coming into play. I really don't know. But right now, those will be the 4 teams. There'll be 24 players selected from the NBA. They may have a draft of those 24 players onto the 3 other teams. The Castrol Rising Stars will play as their own unit. In our latest segment of Embiid, the China doll syndrome, he has a sinus fracture. Second one. That's odd. Like, I've never heard of it. Anybody ever getting it. He's had 2 of them.
That sounds like a wrestling injury. That's kayfabe.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. That's what I thought when I heard that.
It's a wrestling
and it's his
injury.
3rd facial fracture. He's been limited to 6 games this season, but not less than $60 million. Okay, this is where a segment comes in. Pete, you brought up your Hornets. Let's bring them up again. This segment is called Bombing Yourselves. Okay? 3-point shots. All right? Set a record for futility. The Hornets and the Bulls, Michael Jordan's Bulls, combined missed 75 3-point shots.
Oh, my God.
Actual definition of insanity. The actual definition of insanity. 75 missed 3 balls. Now, I assume they made some. I didn't even have the desire or the inclination to go look up how many threes they took total. But you know if they missed 75, the total had to be near 90.
At least.
Total attempts. There's another reason nobody likes the NBA. Okay, I'm going to follow that up with another reason nobody likes the NBA. Okay, I know we're piling on here. But if you want something to happen, somebody has to speak the voice. Somebody has to say it, because these guys, Adam Silver, Charlie Baker, all of these guys are doing damage to the game that we love. Point blank, okay? They've never dribbled a basketball in their life, in my opinion, and it's bad. It shows. And if that was you in your job, Pete, and this show and all of the other shows that you work with didn't get put on television every week, you didn't have a success number that was better than this, my God. All right, here's the other piece of it, okay? Coming in a little hot. But another one of the reasons that people are really turning off the NBA are woke coaches. Popovich, Kerr, they cannot. Popovich just went off about Trump, about 15-minute diatribe about Donald Trump. He's an NBA basketball coach. Nobody cares what you think, son. Nobody. Kerr Pop. That's what I think should happen to those two. What you did to Jason Tatum, terrible. But the leadership also. And I got to be honest, Steve Kerr knows firsthand how some of this stuff politically gets blown up. And hatred, to me, is like a checking account. You got to have enough inside your own account to cash that check for whoever you say you hate. So Popovich and all those other guys, you might want to take a look in the mirror. All right? But again, Faker Baker and Hi-Ho Silver, NCAA and NBA, you do well. You do well to get rid of them. It's like I said to the New York Knicks, you do well to get rid of Julius Randle. And they did. And their team has been fine. But you do well to get rid of a guy who doesn't play any defense. I say that to the Lakers right now. You do well to get rid of LeBron James, except now they're built into the whole family affair out there with Muffy and Buffy and Mr. French, and now it's not going to go away, and so you're stuck with it. But at the end of the day, if you had any sense at all, after watching the tapes that all of us watched of him just walking off and not supporting his team on the defensive end, and you still have that guy in your organization, it's on you. All right, Pete, let's slide into the Super 25, my best one of the year. I'm going out on a limb right now because these algorithm junkies don't know what to do. They really, really don't. It's been that kind of year where last year you had that completely nice, calm ocean water of Purdue, Houston, and Connecticut as your 1, 2, 3. And ours was the same, really. It didn't change at all, pretty much all year. Right now, you've got a snow globe. Right now, the world is being turned over in the basketball NCAA world, and it is absolutely going upside down. But when it goes upside down, and when it starts to rain, when it starts to snow, when the wind starts to howl at this place in the zone, we give you a straight shot on the top 25. We're calling this season like we see it. I didn't expect this. I really didn't. I thought Kansas, Duke, and the Blue Bloods were going to hold their own there and stay at the top. Didn't happen. Houston's in turmoil. There's a couple of other teams. Kansas has gotten bounced around. And when that happens, you can't keep rewarding them. You can't keep having a metric that says Houston is a top 5 team when they have 3 losses right now. Here's my thing. If you have an algorithm, and the algorithm says, okay, Houston was number 1, let's say, to start the year. That means every single loss that they have is below them. So it's a bad loss. Every single one when you're number 1 in the country. Now, how can you remain at the top when you just dumped 3 games to teams that had a lower profile than you. How does the algorithm sustain that? And I'm going to hit them from the top today, Pete, and I'm going to hit them from the bottom. I'm going to give them both shots. But let's go through this because I was proud of this because these people are nuts if they're not looking at the same stuff that I'm looking at. Absolutely crazy. When you look at the UConn Huskies, and I love the UConn Huskies, but they lost to Dayton. They lost to Memphis. Those teams are way, way off their profile. There's no way they can remain in the top 25 with 3 losses. I'm sorry. You know, I just can't do it. All right, we got Florida. This team is hot, 11-0. A bunch of controversy swirling around their coaches, around their team right now. They have sustained, I'm going out on a limb, Pete, the best backcourt in the country right now, Florida. This is why I got them number 1. And the reason I put them over Tennessee, everybody has Tennessee. Everybody's kneeling down and picking the Volunteers, and I get it. But this is what I did, okay? I took an accounting of every single one of their opponents and what they said, what Torvik, what Ken Palm, what all of those guys said were the numbers. So really working with Torvik's numbers on this, I went through and I added up every single game that Florida had as an opponent. What was the opponent's number? And then I took it and divided by the number of games they had. So I took Tennessee's and Florida because I had to decide between those two for 1 and 2. But when I looked at Florida's schedule, I was like, wow, people are missing this a little bit. And so, I mean, just especially where some of these teams have them listed. But right now, when I took them, Florida had a 142.6. That was the average of all of their opponents. Tennessee had a 153.7, slightly above, 10 points. But to me, it was a deciding factor because Florida had a great win over North Carolina the other night. They've played good teams. Tennessee, like I said last week, Pete, they haven't exactly been gluten-free. So I put them in the number 2 spot. They're having a great year. I got it. But when I had to decide between those two, I really wanted to do a deep dive, and that's how I came up with that tiebreaker. I got Auburn number 3. Okay, 9-1, really good team. They've sustained. They have 1 loss. It's a decent loss, but I'm going to put them number 3 because I like the team. Iowa State, again, 9-1. They locked T.J. Otzelberger up, their coach, till 2030. Smart move, Iowa State. Smart move. But here's one that I just can't get my arms around. This team last night beat Michigan, Oklahoma. They're 10-0, and Bart Torvik has them at 50.
What?
50. Now, I'll take you through some of their wins and losses. Now, they haven't exactly been gluten-free either, but this is a program that's been a little bit down. Porter Moser from Loyola, Sister Jean, the Final Four run. Out of that, he got the Oklahoma job. Oklahoma's a football school. They had a hard time getting going. They had a hard time getting up there. Now they're up there. They're 10-0. How do you not put them 5? Come on. They got them at 50. It's a joke. Your algorithm's a joke. Okay? Come in the zone, folks. That's what makes us great. Kentucky, 10-1. Pope is dope. We've said it all year. UCLA, Mick Cronenborg, he's got this team right back online. They had a good win over Oregon, a very good Oregon team. They're 9-1. You got to bump them. Again, Oregon, a team that nobody is respecting, 10-1. Dana Altman, they've got a squad out there, folks. I've seen them play 2 different times. Believe me, they've got a squad. Alabama, 8-2. Duke, 8-2. All of their losses are credible, so I can move them here. But you still got 2 losses, and you were listed above the teams that you lost to. Kentucky beat Duke. So how is, in a lot of those polls, Duke is represented above Kentucky, although Kentucky head-to-head beat them. That's what I don't get, folks. So this is why you come to us. Kansas 8-2. So you got Alabama, Duke, and Kansas, 3 teams that you thought would start the year 1, 2, 3 maybe. Be in that conversation, be in that consideration. Right now, they've all got 2 losses, 9, 10, and 11. And it's a result of what Pete and I talk about, that TV schedule. Marquette holding water, 9-2. This Mississippi team is 9-1. They've got them way, way down in the polls, way, way down there. But again, I think there's some bias that goes out. I think there's some bias against Florida because of the stuff that's floating around about their coach right now. I think there's some bias with this coach from Mississippi, Chris Beard, and what happened to him at Texas when he got fired there. I just think that's part of it. Let's keep rolling, Pete. 14, Cincinnati, 8-1. This team's very good. Don't sleep on it. One of the teams like BYU that survived that jump to the Big 12 that I was worried about for them. Mississippi State, 9-1. Team is loaded with athletes. They are really, really good. Keep an eye on this team. The SEC is loaded. Texas A&M, 9-2. They're back. Wade Taylor really starting to hit his stride. He's a great player. Texas Tech, 8-2. Doing good stuff out there. Again, holding. They got a really good schedule. They're holding water. Again, not gluten-free. I like Maryland. 8-2. Julian Reese, Derek Queen. Nice 1-2 punch up front for Coach Willard. I really like that team. Missouri, they're playing tonight. 9-1. When they're at home, man, they're electric. Nobody has these guys on their board. You better start looking at them, folks. Right now, they're playing Illinois tonight, and they're getting about 6 points from what I could see. I would take Missouri there, folks, tonight. Pittsburgh, excuse me, 9-2 for Pittsburgh. I think they're the best team in the ACC. I said it. I think that might hold. Could be them and Duke going down into it. St. Mary's 9-2. Memphis 8-2, holding on. They got pretty good wins. You look at their wins. They beat UConn. They have some good wins. They beat Michigan State. Michigan State slipped back in there for me, 8-2. Georgia 9-1, not represented in a lot of people's stuff. And Pete, I'm going to give it to you right now, and people are going to go crazy when we say this, the Jandoli School, the Bonner Territory, the Bonner Nation. That's right. We beat Providence. We're 11-1, and right now, in the zone, top 25, Mark Schmidt and the St. Bonaventure Bonnies, Pete. Light it up. Light it up. Here's what I'm talking about this other stuff. Oklahoma, these are the wins. And again, year to year, you don't know who's going to be good. Nobody knew Tony Bennett was going to jump off the ledge. Nobody knew that before the year. If Tony Bennett's coaching Virginia right now, it's a different team. If you have Virginia on your schedule right now, it's a different team. But you didn't have nothing to do with that when you scheduled them. So this is what I'm talking about. Oklahoma, they played Providence, Arizona, Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Oklahoma State. They've won all of those games. How are they 50? Florida, the Big Gator, in the zone, number one, the best backcourt in the nation, no question about it. Okay. Let's go to Baker in depth right now. Faker Baker lit on fire yesterday by Josh Hawley and other members of Congress. The problem is that you're really, really running against the grain here. It's what we talked about last week, Pete. When people don't want something and you give it to them anyway, you might get your hands up and get ready for that punch in the nose that's coming right back. I think Charlie Baker's got a punch in the nose coming, and I don't see how any of that stuff ever holds up in a court of law at a significant level. It's partially, you see what's wrong with some of our court systems as well, that this stuff has gotten as far as it has. But these organizations like the NCAA hide behind these frivolous lawsuits and hide behind some of this stuff to go, oh, well, that's what the court said. And I was glad Hawley called them out on it yesterday, because that's not what the court said. Yep. You interpreted it that way because that's what you wanted to do because you woke. And you want to be woke. And right now, when it seems to me, when you go woke, you seem to go broke, my friend. Kerr gets $17.5 million to spur his garbage. Popovich, $16 million to spew his garbage. Nobody cares about your political views. Tell us why the Spurs are not in the playoff front right now. Tell us why the Golden State Warriors are dropping like a lead balloon right now. $50 million, a golden parachute for Adam Silver. He makes $10 million a year, but he's signed till 2030. So it would take $50 million to get rid of him right now. Talk about locking it in. Baker, that poor guy only gets $3 million for this little stop in between being governor of Massachusetts and trying to put together his own presidential run in the Republican Party, I would assume at some point later. This isn't going to help, Charlie. That ain't going to help. All right? You may have just destroyed yourself politically for the future. I don't know if you had any inclination about getting back in the game. You may have just destroyed yourself, okay? And he's a Republican. He's a Republican. I don't get it.
In name only.
Yeah, no doubt, Pete, no doubt. Playing heavy to stay relevant. This is one that's really, really going to take off and go interesting. I didn't realize the depth of some of the seismic portion that was going on here with the plate tectonics with all of these conferences. But this one really caught my attention, Pete. Colorado State and Utah State are suing the MWC, the Mountain West Conference, over their exit penalties. Okay? This is what I said on a lot of these shifting of these conferences. You have to pay to get out, and you got to pay to get in. You got to pay to get into your new conference. You got to pay to get out of your old one. Okay? They're saying it's extraordinary and unauthorized actions of the Mountain West that is penalizing schools for leaving to go to the Pac-12. The penalties range, listen to this one, Pete. In this, they're trying to install between $18 and $39 million penalties on these people who are now being courted by the Pac-12, who got absolutely ravaged with their teams, absolutely bolting for every conference out there that's not named the Pac-12. They all ran into the Power 5, left the Pac-12 completely open. There's only 2 remaining teams that left in the Pac-12. So they started going hunting as well. They started to go look for teams that they could add to. So they were going to take 5 teams from the Mountain West Conference. Each team has somewhere in the range of a $30 million buyout. Think about that. $150 million. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But again, these guys are absolutely lit on fire. Absolutely lit on fire. All right, Pete, I want to take you into a segment right now that we're going to maybe continue throughout the year, but I just really, this caught my attention. I wanted to share it with our viewers. It's good stuff, too. I call it our Triple T Ranch, life down on the Triple T Ranch. And the Triple T Ranch is the Torvik, Bart Torvik, his tabulation turnovers. This is the guy who's sticking to that algorithm like a fly sticks to fly paper, okay? You got Houston at number 2. They're 7-3. Bart, you're like Pete Carroll, buddy. You're throwing it on the goal line. Duke, number 3, 9-2. We have Duke up there, but they're not number 3. No way. Not in a million years. Gonzaga, I love it. They're riding it low right now. They're having trouble. Mark Few, I thought, as one of the coaches, as much as I like and respect him, I always thought Mark Few might be one of those guys that struggles in this NIL game. You know, he's more of a team builder. He's a program builder. And those are the coaches that are going to be impacted by this the most. They have Gonzaga at 5, and they're 8-3, Pete. They're 8-3. No way. No way. They have Florida at number 7. They're 11-0. We have them at number 1. Now, it gets worse than this, though. Florida at 7 is not terrible. We have them at number 1 because we like their team. We've seen them play a couple of times. But it gets a lot worse. Kentucky at number 10. They're 10-1. No way. No way can you have Duke, Houston, and Gonzaga over Kentucky right now. Their body of work just isn't there, Bart. It's not there, Bart Simpson. Okay. Illinois, number 11, 7-3. We all like this young, mercurial team, but right now they're having trouble. Right now they're bouncing up and down, and they're 7-3. Well coached, but they don't belong in the 11th spot at 7-3. Arizona, this might be the most egregious. All right, 19th. They are nowhere on In the Zone top 25, nowhere on our Super 25. They got these guys 19th, and they're 5-5. Nowhere in anybody's top 25 should you have a 5-5 team in December. It just shouldn't happen. Okay, St. John's, number 12, 9-2. Not exactly gluten-free out there in Queens. All right, Connecticut, 16 at 9-3. They dropped 3 games that are below their profile. Got to drop them. I love them, but you got to drop them. Baylor, 7-3. They're in the 20 spot. Purdue, 21, 8-3. Do you think, Pete, that these guys get, like, it would be difficult to make a living like this? You know, just doing algorithms and polls and all this other stuff. Do you think there's any chance that some of these guys might be getting compensated? Because when you look at this, I mean, it's like, really?
Yeah, but you know why? They're getting paid
the numbers wouldn't say this, though.
They're getting paid for all their appearances on ESPN and all the sports channels and things like that. They do that to create content. And by creating the content, they're generating revenue for themselves by explaining this and getting more minutes on a TV show.
I would not be surprised, I'm going to say this, that somebody might be getting paid directly from some of these Power 5 conferences. Or at least as when the algorithm went in, they had some kind of assist in making this work because there's no other way to explain this. Like, here's some really good teams. I'm going to take it from the other approach here now. Oregon is 26th in Torvik, 10-1. I mean, come on. Georgia, 9-1. They have them at 27. Oklahoma, now they moved them up to 45. They were 50 before. They're 11-0. They won last night against really good competition against Michigan.
Yeah.
Missouri, 51. They're 10-1. They blasted Kansas. Blasted Kansas. All right. So take it from the bottom. You have Jackson State. They're everybody's guarantee game poster child right now. All right? We get it. You're trying to fund your program. No doubt. But they have them at 324 out of a cohort of 364. And they're 0-10. Now, how did they get up 40 spots when you haven't? We talked about who they played last week. We don't need to go through that again. They got at least 6 games on their schedule that are absolute no-win games. Okay? But now VMI, they have listed at 361. This is one of our military institutions. You know? Come on. They got them at 361. They're 6-6. They beat Charleston Southern, a legitimate Division I team that they have at 298. How does that hold? Now, a lot of those wins are Division III and off-the-chart wins. I get that, but they do have wins where another team has no wins, and they're somehow 40 points below that team. The Citadel, another one of our military institutions, number 353, 5-6. They beat Stetson, who's 355.
How can anybody 5-6 be below somebody that's 0-10?
And by 30 points. Here's the other one, Mercyhurst. Just came into Division I. Throw them a bone. 349. They're 6-8. Bunch of non-Division I's in there, but they beat Morgan State. They beat Canisius, and they beat Sacramento State. They have 3 Division I victories to their credit. Just came into the ball game, and you got them listed 30, 40 points below Jackson State because Jackson State went out and turned themselves into a basketball ATM. Weapons of math destruction, Pete. That's what I'm going with. T.J. Otzenberger remained at Iowa State through 31-32, excuse me. All right. Pete, we have a Portal Potty update for you. Throw our graphic up there for me, will you? This is going to step outside the basketball world, but just give you another indication of how this whole thing completely out of control. You have a quarterback who's the backup quarterback going into a bowl game right now, and he has entered his name into the portal and says he can no longer stay with the team as he now has to start to get ready to approach his new future and his new NIL contract, okay? They have no control over this stuff right now. There's people just walking out on their teams in the middle of the season. You're getting ready for one of the high points of your season, a bowl game, and you got guys quitting. Go back last year to the NIT when you had certain teams that were mid-major teams who were saying, yeah, we couldn't really get our guys excited about going to the NIT, so we're not going to play in it. That's a problem. This is a problem, all right? The SEC right now, they were always known for their football, always known for big football conference, but right now they are obliterating it in basketball as well, okay? In the zone, okay, you have Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn, not necessarily in that order, but our order was Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, and that's 3 teams from the SEC, and they're 1, 2, and 3 in the country. Now, Iowa State could have slid in there. I like Oklahoma, but Kentucky is right there as well. So the SEC is loaded for bear. You have Alabama, Arkansas. Oklahoma's in that league now. You have Kentucky at 10-1. Ooh, that's a monster conference right now. Unbelievable. Okay, undefeated for Christmas, Pete. Undefeated for Christmas. Florida, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Utah State. They might have got clipped. Drake. Here's the good Drake story. They moved this guy up as a Division II coach, Ben McCollum. Move him up as a Division II coach, storied Division II coach, winning Division II coach. Really, really good story. He goes into Drake. He's got him undefeated. They're undefeated right now. Great story. And he's a heck of a basketball coach. You know, he's a really good basketball coach. How he was left in Division II all those years is kind of symptomatic of what we talk about, you know, with the game, you know, the way the carousel burns and the way the carousel turns, you know. It's really crazy. All right, but here we got some young and winless, Pete. We're going to stay this way for Christmas? I hope not, but it looks like now everybody's starting to break and get out, and so you're going to have a little bit of a lull, especially with these lower level teams that probably won't play over Christmas. Coppin State 0-12. They're missing Fang Mitchell right about now. They're 363 out of 364. Chicago State 0-12, really struggling. Canisius 0-11. Really, the Bonnies are high and the Griffs are low. That's good for us. Alcorn State 0-12. Jackson State 0-10. All right, Pete, I had this hung over from last week's show. We blew through last week's show so fast, I didn't even get near it. Couldn't even get close to it, all right? But this is something that I saw, I really, really liked, and I wanted to share it with our viewers. I've always been, since I'm a young man, a Big East, real Big East fan. From the inception of the league, it's just really been cool. You know, I grew up with it. You know, watching it on a black and white TV on Channel 9, Channel 11, long before cable came out, watching Chris Mullin, Patrick Ewing, all the great young stars. But what was amazing to me was, and I had seen a lot of these players play, but they listed something that was the Big East Player of the Year every single year. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a read down here. I don't know if I'll get to all of them. We've got about 10 minutes left, so maybe we can get there. But just a little bit of a clip on all of these guys. Because I saw, I would say, every single one of these young men play. So I can give you, and I was around a lot of these young men in ways, like with Chris Mullin. You know, he was a 3-time winner of the Big East Player of the Year. You know, our high school team at All Hallows knocked his Zavarian team out in the playoffs. You know, so I've been around these guys. I've seen some of these guys. Walter Berry was a New York City legend. You know, so this read is going to be pretty good. But the number one, first in 79-80, okay, John Duran of Georgetown. I had a courtside seat to watch Georgetown play. I had never even heard of Georgetown University. And then I see their 6'10" basketball coach, who's a former NBA player, and his team might be one of the toughest teams I've ever seen play basketball. It's John Thompson, Georgetown, long before Ewing, long before anybody came in and really made that program into the top 5 program that it was for many, many years under Coach Thompson. Struggling a little bit right now, but they seem to be maybe making some headway with Coach Cooley. But John Duran was the first. He was the first big guard. Quinn Buckner, John Duran. These were guys who could play linebacker, and they were point guards. They were 2 guards. These are guys who could play in the NFL. First time you ever saw guards like that. John Duran was a great guard. One of the best in Big East history. John Bagley from Boston College, number 2. What a guard he was. He could score on anybody. Back in the day, he just would put up numbers all over the place. He was a great player. Had BC going on a little bit of a heyday there as well, but really great player. Number 3, Dan Calandrillo. This is Bill Rafferty's guy. This is back when Rafferty was still coaching. Seton Hall, Dan Calandrillo, maybe 6 foot. What a tough guy he was, man. He could score. He could take it mid-range. He could do a lot of things, and he was really good. Okay, so here the Big East goes into Chris Mullin, Patrick Ewing, Chris Mullin, Patrick Ewing, Chris Mullin. All right? This is, if you say that Magic Johnson and Larry Bird rebuilt the NBA, I could go along with that. Their college days against each other in the final, Michigan State against Indiana State, great game, really well, just a great time in basketball as well, too. But to watch all of that going on at that time, to say that those 2 guys were really guys who pushed off and really made the NBA go into that new level, you could easily say that, then followed by Michael Jordan, of course. But then if you're looking at those 2 guys who propelled the Big East into that next level, it's Chris Mullin and Patrick Ewing. Absolutely no doubt. It's the Georgetown rivalry with Lou Carnesecca and John Thompson. And John Thompson, one of the great moments I was in the building at the time one of the great moments for St. John's. Lou Carnesecca had a really good team, and they got on a win streak. And Louis had a sweater that he wore to one of the games. And when he won, he didn't take the sweater off. And so then the sweater went 17, 18 games. I don't know how many games they got, but they got hot, and the sweater stayed on. Louis, being that very superstitious little leprechaun that he was, he didn't take it off. But John Thompson walks into Madison Square Garden with a jacket on, but takes off the jacket and has almost the identical sweater to the one that Carnesecca is wearing. And they ran St. John's out of the Garden that night. It was a really, really good game. But that back in that time, that's when the Big East formulated. So in the fourth spot, Chris Mullin. 5, Patrick Ewing. 6, Chris Mullin. 7, Patrick Ewing. 8, Chris Mullin. Unbelievable. Follow up Chris Mullin also with the indomitable Walter Berry from St. John's as Player of the Year in 9. St. John's right there encapsulates 5, Big East, 4 Big East Player of the Year tournaments in 6 years. St. John's established themselves as a power in the Big East. And, I mean, after Carnesecca, really, been a lot of bad decisions there and stuff like that, but they just haven't seemed to be able to get back there. I know they're hopeful with Pitino. We'll see. Right now, they're not really in that mix, but we'll see. Let's shoot down after Walter Berry. You have Reggie Williams from Georgetown, a great swing man. What a great player. Charles Smith from Pitt and Charles Smith from Georgetown. 2 Charles Smiths right in a row in 11 and 12. And then you've got the great out of Syracuse Orangemen, Derek Coleman and Billy Owens back-to-back, 13 and 14. That's the team that Anderson was talking about joining, Pete. That's the team Anderson said, I really wanted to go to Syracuse till my mom told me I was going to Georgia Tech. Okay? That was Billy Owens and Derek Coleman right there. Move on, 15, Alonzo Mourning. Georgetown, great center, great NBA center as well. One of John Thompson's big men in that cohort of Mutombo, Ewing, and Mourning. Unbelievable. Terry DeHeer from Seton Hall, guard. I believe, I want to go back now, I'd have to check this, but I believe he played for Bobby Hurley Sr. at St. Anthony's, New Jersey. Stayed home, local product. Great guard. Led Seton Hall that year. Amazing season for them. Donyell Marshall, one of the Huskies. He caught it in 93, 94. Kerry Kittles from Villanova. We played against some of these teams as well. Ray Allen caught it from Connecticut. Mike Colgate team went to the NCAA tournament and unfortunately got matched up against that Connecticut team. Pat Garrity from Notre Dame. Richard Hamilton from Connecticut. One of the only back-to-backs, but they also, I couldn't figure out how you had so many people here in so few years. I had to go back. And what I figured out was I went, oh, that's what they did, when they gave out more than one in the year. So they had years where they gave out 2. They actually had one where they gave out 3. So you had Richard Hamilton and Tim James of Miami co-sharing it. Troy Murphy of Notre Dame. And then we go Troy Bell of BC, back to Troy Murphy of Notre Dame, all in the same year. And you got from Connecticut, Caron Butler, great swing man. Brandon Knight out of Pittsburgh. Troy Bell from BC, great guard. Emeka Okafor. A lot of these guys on this list you're going to see, they didn't have great NBA careers. It's amazing to me that a lot of these players on this list really didn't have great NBA careers. Hakeem Warwick from Syracuse. Randy Foye from Villanova. A lot of these guys didn't have good careers. Okay, Georgetown, Jeff Green. Luke Harangotti from Notre Dame. Notre Dame kind of getting here with Mike Bray's team. DeJuan Blair and Hashim Thabit from UConn, maybe one of the roughest top 5 picks of all time in the NBA draft. Wesley Johnson from Syracuse. Ben Hansbrough from Notre Dame. Jay Crowder from Marquette. Otto Porter from Georgetown. He was great. Dougie McDermott from Creighton. Unbelievable career he had at Creighton. Ton of points. Ryan Archidiaco from Villanova and Chris Dunn of Providence shared it. Chris Dunn the following year took it by himself. Then you go Josh Hart, Villanova, Jalen Brunson, Villanova. These are the Villanova years. You can see how the teams emerge and dominate and took those times where they were getting it up and down, Pete. It's crazy. Marcus Howard snuck in there from Marquette. Miles Powell from Seton Hall. Sandro Mamukelashvili from Seton Hall. Colin Gillespie and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. That's the threesome. That's the triumvirate. And Gillespie and Robinson Earl were teammates at Villanova. Colin Gillespie, again, 52nd recipient from Villanova. Tyler Kolek from Marquette, the great player from Marquette who's now with the New York Knicks. And lastly, but not leastly, Devin Carter of the Providence Friars. Okay, Pete, I want to just close with the game that took place. It was in Mohegan Sun. And remember I told you Bonner territory goes wherever Bonner territory goes. So you got Providence against the Bonners, and I thought we were going to be in for it. But Mark Schmidt and his team right now, they've got a really, really good team. And Mark Schmidt's one of those guys that I always worried about in this NIL environment because he's a lot like Mark Few, just a great program coach, just a great coach. But go back, and all of the people that passed on Mark Schmidt, Bonaventure, we're thankful that you did. But all of these programs that passed on him as their head coach when they were thinking about hiring him, and go look at his record against the Power Five, go look at his record against the best teams in the country, and it's absolutely astounding. I had to throw my Bonnies into that 25 spot, Pete, because they're on fire right now. And we shoot up, and what we did to Providence, that game wasn't close. It was a 4-point game at the end, but we had that game in control most of the day. And so it's been up and down for the Bonnies in our lifetime. But right now, when we're going good, we want to let everybody know this is Bonner territory. You're pumped in at 25 in the zone. Stay there. Don't lose it. A10 starts soon. Pete, we're in the zone. Thanks for meeting me early today, Pete. And again, we'll get back to everybody before Christmas or no?
Day after Christmas, we can record.
The day after, but we won't see anybody before then, right?
No, we will not.
All right. So to our viewers, to the zoners, to the best people out there in the basketball world, have a very, very Merry Christmas from In the Zone.